Welcome to Gattsy on Goosebumps, the show in which I review every single Goosebumps book from R.L. Stein's original series. And today we are looking at Goosebumps number 15, You Can't Scare Me. Let's see if that's true. I got some very spooky mud monsters on the front cover here, all coming out of the swamp at different levels. It was basically just brown and orange on the front, but it looks like someone's just thrown a pile of mud on the front cover of the book, so I think it works quite well. Tagline is, "They're coming for you." And the blurb reads as follows. It's gonna be a scream. Courtney is a total show-off. She thinks she's so brave and she's always making Eddie and his friends look like wimps. But now Eddie's decided he's had enough. He's gonna scare Courtney once and for all, and he's just come up with the perfect plan. He's going to lure Courtney down to Muddy Creek, because Eddie knows Courtney believes in that silly rumour about the monsters. Mud monsters that live in the creek. Too bad Eddie doesn't believe in the rumour, because it just might be true. So Eddie and his three friends really want to scare Courtney, because she's so perfect at everything and she's so brave and courageous, and they take this as a personal slight. So they think of all these ways they can try and scare her in front of everybody and sort of, damage this perfect reputation she has. And they come up with, this idea to put a rubber snake in her lunch, but the teacher finds it and thinks it's real, and Courtney has to come to the rescue. And then they try to drop a tarantula in her hair, but it lands in someone else's hair, and Courtney has to come to the rescue. Then they try and make one of the friend's dog act really vicious to try and scare her, but the dog gets lost and Courtney's actually the one who finds it. And so these all backfire pretty spectacularly and pretty consistently. Then they discover that Courtney believes in the urban legend of the mud monsters that rise out of Muddy Creek once a year at a full moon. Why the people of the town, or R.L. Stein for that matter, settled on the name Muddy Creek is beyond me. So they have an idea. Eddie's older brother Kevin is filming a school project which involves, them dressing up as mud monsters and rising out of the creek. So the plan is they'll get Courtney down to the creek, and then Kevin and his friends will rise out of the creek and give her a real good scare, and "You can scare me," is what she'll be saying. So then they're watching it all happen. They're, looking at Courtney from the bushes, and the mud monsters come out of the creek, and they're so excited because Courtney's going to see them and get really scared. Kevin and his friends are doing such a good job. But then Kevin shows up. He's not in costume, his friends aren't in costume, because they had a flat tire. But if Kevin and his friends are here, then who's rising out of the swamp? Yeah, so it turns out, at the end we find out that the mud monsters were actually real. But that's it. That's the end of the story. It just ends with saying, yeah, that was really scary, that thing that happened 2 weeks ago. Courtney, found out that monsters were real. Courtney, knows that monsters are real now, and, everyone... Yeah, Courtney's bragging about how she was right about the monsters being real, and, we really want to get her back, but we're just too scared. End of story. There are a few immediate problems. In previous Goosebumps books, like Be Careful What You Wish For or The Haunted Mask, we see a character who's really being tormented by people and really being, bullied, essentially, and we sympathise with them and in whatever action they want to take to get back at people. Courtney's not really a bully. She's annoying and she's, perfect, but she doesn't really do anything directly to antagonise the people. Like, there's one scene where Eddie tries to climb a tree to save a cat, and he can't do it, and then Courtney comes along and does it really easily. That's not really her fault. That's just her saving a cat. You're just... bitch. Really, Eddie and his friends come off more like the bullies who are just jealous that this girl's much braver and much better at them than most things. Which would be fine, but they don't really suffer any ramifications at the end. They just get scared again. Also, the course of the whole plot is just them trying to scare Courtney. The actual horror of the story, the mud monsters, appear at one page on the very end. It's the shortest actual supernatural scary experience that's been in a Goosebumps book so far. It's the briefest possible appearance. The creek was much bigger then, much deeper and wider. It wasn't just a muddy trickle of water the way it is today. The people were poor and hardworking, and pretty soon they'd built an entire village of huts along the creek. But the people in town looked down on them. They refused to help them in any way. The town officials refused to share the city water supply with the Muddy Creek people. The store owners refused to let them buy anything on credit. Many of the Creek people were going hungry, many of them were sick, but the town refused to help. This all happened over 100 years ago, maybe even longer. One night there was a terrible rainstorm, pouring rains and hurricane winds. Before the Creek people could run to safety, the creek rose up. The muddy banks towered up like a tidal wave of heavy black mud. The mud swept over the village. It buried all the huts and all the people. Like lava from a volcano, it buried everything beneath it. The next morning there was nothing left of the village. The creek rolled by high on its muddy banks. The woods were silent and empty. The village and all the people were gone. That should be the basis for the story. It should be, the entire thing should be based around the mud people. We don't need a whole comedy of errors about all these pranks that go wrong. It's not really what you read Goosebumps for. You get invested for the supernatural elements, not just these kids hatching wacky schemes. So between the characters that are hard to sympathise with, the very, very brief appearance of the actual horror of the story, and a plot that for the most part isn't really suited towards Goosebumps at all, I have to say it's a very disappointing entry in the series. Goosebumps, you can't scare me. No, you certainly can't. Not recommended. And that's all for this week. Please join me next time, which I discuss Goosebumps number 16, One Day at Horrorland. Thank you for watching, and as always, please stay spooky.